Welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
They do say, Oggy, that we are what we eat. Just looking up and down. But anyway, I mean, during your sporting career, when you was a cricketer, you'd have been a lot slimmer, eating different food probably, a different regime. Tell us about that.
To be fair, wasn't eating a lot of different food, but I was active. I went into the gym, I was on a cricket pitch 5 days out, and you burned the food off, so you didn't have to really watch what you ate. Yeah. And for the last 12 years, I've been putting things in and not burning them off.
OK, so, yeah, it's time to take that. But you're a Yorkshireman. And you play cricket for Yorkshire. It's a great honour for a Yorkshireman, isn't it, to play cricket for his
Massively,
county?
yeah.
Because back in the day, you had to be born in Yorkshire, didn't you, to actually play for Yorkshire?
Yeah, I was born back in Yorkshire. My mum and dad were in Pelsall. We moved back into Yorkshire, so I was born in the county, so I was allowed to play for it. But I was a late bloomer. 18, I wasn't playing for the academy, and I got a Yorkshire contract late on. And it just went really, really quickly.
So how does it work? A lot of young people playing these sports at school and that, they played probably football, rugby and cricket, weren't they? Is that you? Yeah,
so at school, I went to a comprehensive school that had a choice of football or football. Yeah. Wasn't my favourite sport, but I wanted to play sport, so I played football for school, and then in the winter I played rugby for my local rugby club, and then cricket for my local cricket club in the summer.
So when did it really start for you at cricket then? So when did that penny drop that you wanted to be a cricketer?
A big piece of luck. Phil Carrick came into Pudsey Kongs, who was an ex-Yorkshire captain, saw me playing third team and put me in the first team. And so I was 17, 18. He saw something in me. I don't know, because everybody else had overlooked me. I think it's because I swung the ball away.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No, because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question, that's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News. The government is set to unveil the most significant changes to the asylum system in modern times. But will the proposed crackdown go far enough? Migration Minister Mike Tapp will join me in the studio. He'll share more about how the Home Office plans to introduce their Danish-inspired immigration reforms. And after the briefing war that broke out in Downing Street this week, will Sir Keir Starmer be ousted as Prime Minister? I'll also be speaking to the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Why didn't the Tories introduce time limits on asylum claims during their 14 years in power? And what would the Conservatives do if they were overseeing the BBC Charter Review? After that GB News exclusive interview with President Trump, we'll get the inside scoop with presenter Ben Leo and more reaction from podcaster Justin Young. Economist Julian Jessup will break down what we know about the Chancellor's autumn budget, with reports this week that she's U-turned on her proposal for raising income tax. But there will be tax rises, you can bet your bottom dollar on it. And historian and author Sir Anthony Selden will join me to give his analysis of the toxic briefing war that broke out in Downing Street this week, and he'll also tell me more about his book, The Path to Light. As ever, it's another busy 90 minutes of punchy politics to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. Well, what a week it's been for Telegraph reporting, for the BBC, for GB News and Bev Turner and a Trump interview. And who better to discuss it all and more with me this morning than former BBC broadcaster Nicholas Owen. I have to say, I know you've broadcast for lots of people, Nick, but I labour the BBC point because, of course, we're very intrigued for your reaction to recent events. And on the front pages of many of the papers, the Trump story continues. He speaks to Bev Turner for GB News. He tells her he does intend to sue. He then goes on Air Force One, tells all of the press pack there, yeah, I'm going to sue, and it might not be 1 billion, it might be 5 billion. I mean, just with your old BBC hat on for a moment, I mean, what are you thinking about the criticisms that have been made of our national broadcast?
Let's get Trump out of the way first of all.
OK.
I'd be a bit surprised if he goes ahead eventually with the legal thing. I mean, he is always he's a playground bully. Let's put it like that. He goes around and makes a lot of threats. I think he wants Starmer, wants our Prime Minister to sort of, wants the apology from him, it looks like to me now. And that puts the Prime Minister in a very awkward position, of course. As to the BBC, listen, it's huge, enormous organisation. I don't think people realise quite how big it has become, trying to straddle so many areas of life. Traditional broadcasting is only a small part of it. I was amazed that I was watching a programme on Netflix the other day, don't we all? A huge, long film all about America made by BBC Studios. Well, hang on a minute, it's crossover. So it's a very, very big organisation, therefore impossible for the few people at the very top to look at everything and know what's going on. That's true. It's true of any big organisation, so that's taken as a given. The problem, I think, with the BBC is when things go wrong in any part of that huge outfit, particularly on the journalism side, we're told we must trust BBC News. It takes so long, first of all, for anybody to notice it at all. There's layers and layers of reporting, whether the viewers have got... There wasn't much complaint about the famous Panorama programme in the first place, so it took a bit of time for it to percolate through. But then the committee system, the meeting system, slows everything down. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything when things start going wrong. So that is the issue.
Well, don't forget the clip, or a different kind of clip, but the same splicing appeared on Newsnight and was called out at the time by former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. He flagged this strange splicing of "we will march on the Capitol and then fight like hell." It was pointed out, and we did the story at the Telegraph, and it was dismissed. I think the other problem for the BBC, Nick, is a degree of hubris. You know, emails flying around this week. Deborah Turnus and Tim Davie have both stood down, keep on telling us how great their journalism is. It's world-beating journalism. It's better journalism than anyone else. And clearly that's been proved not to be true in recent days.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's got to be faced. Standards of journalism, right, again, because it's so very, very big. Who's looking after what's happening at BBC Arabic? I mean, that is, come on, that is indefensible what has been happening there.
Well, there's been huge exposés by David Collier and others of also who they've platformed, let alone the content and whether it is or not impartial. And there'll be many Jewish viewers who say it absolutely isn't. But also it's the platforming of people, oh, lo and behold, they're actually linked to Hamas. Well, or the reliance on Palestinian Health Authority figures that turn out to be Hamas figures. Anyway, we could do an entire show on that.
Just one thing, just before we go, I was very interested as an old Financial Times person of original. Many on the big pages. Yes, that as well. But I'm always very careful to have a look at the business pages because the very stories often start there and grow into bigger ones. But Rishi Sunak, former Prime Minister, he's now writing for the Sunday Times business section. He makes a very good point about the BBC. They had decided overall that Trump's a baddie, as he puts it, and that unfortunately just eventually leaks into the way so many of their staff look at it.
The groupthink seems to be, if you're on the right, you're a baddie. If you're on your left, you're a goodie. This is the trouble, perhaps, Nick. Let's move on to another debate that's going to probably kick off in earnest in the House of Commons this week, and that's the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's immigration plan. Now, she's calling it the Great big crackdown on asylum claims. Yeah. She wants to end Britain's golden ticket for asylum seekers by forcing people arriving illegally to wait 20 years before they can apply. Currently, if you're on indefinite leave to remain, you can apply after 5 years. Do you think this is going to work?
Very doubt. Nothing seems to have worked, does it? And this seems to be yet another layer of bureaucracy. I mean, the whole point about this is the public see people arriving on these little boats, coming ashore, assisted by our border force.
Yes.
And with
waved over by the French police.
The French
We're
police,
paying millions, if not billions, too.
Exactly. And they stand. I notice they now stand up in the water. They can seem to have these new wonderful boots. So they can actually get into the water now, but don't go any further. But that's not a problem. And then they get here and they disappear. They disappear. So who thinks that people are just going to sort of line up? Oh, excuse me, can I know I've only got a couple of years for this, and then I've got to wait 20 years if I want to apply to be a citizen.
But isn't the immediate draw... I mean, I'll put this to Mike Tapp, who hopefully is waiting in the wings to come on after the break. Isn't the problem that the main draw is simply the migrant hotel and food and board?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to come here by dinghy. Just in the interim, you know that if you come to Britain, you're going to be put up in a 3-, 4- or 5-star hotel in some town where the locals are not going to be happy about it, but that's the way it is. We saw with the Epping decision that actually the planning rights overrule those concerns of residents. We saw that in the last 2 weeks. So that's the immediate draw. I don't know whether the timing it takes to get permanent residence really counts at that point.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Exactly that. It's that the basic element of the way people get here and and as you say, the expectations they have. Yeah,
well, we'll see how Labour backbenchers react to that plan in the week. Let's move on to the chaos at the heart of Labour involving briefing and counter-briefing. So we've got the Sunday Telegraph saying that Angela Rayner is now laying the groundwork for a leadership challenge against the Prime Minister. That comes after Wes Streeting was meant to be trying to stage a coup. Lo and behold, Angela has done an interview with the Sunday Mirror.
Yes.
Just in case anyone forgot that she was once Deputy Prime Minister. She's waiting in the wings. This is not her on manoeuvres, is it, Nick?
No, not at all. And in fact, the interview is when you read the interview, it's forgive me, Sunday Mirror, good to get her, of course, but a bit on the bland side, really.
It's funny. I wonder why she went to the Sunday Mirror and not someone that might scrutinise what she did about her stamp duty and council tax a little more closely.
Yes.
She's gone to a friendly. I've now got the chance to champion views of my constituents, and I am humbled by it. So she's gone into, I'm a humble backbencher. Yes. But what she's really doing is sending out a message here that she's still here. She's still available to prop up the left flank of this party. And if all should go wrong with Starmer and indeed Reeves on November the 26th, don't forget our Ange.
Our Ange is here, yes. But she does dismiss everything that's going on around Whitehall and so on.
Yes.
Tittle-tattle.
It's tittle-tattle. The trouble is with that argument is tittle-tattle that was started by people inside Number 10. So it's quite hard to get away from the fact that they did brief that Keir Starmer was facing a leadership challenge before he actually was.
Yes,
which is weird. Yeah. Let's put your FT hat back on, which matches with your tie today. Your pink tie, Nick, because you're very interested in what will happen in the budget on November the 26th.
Yes, I am. I mean, I just find it absolutely extraordinary what is going on. I have to say, as I was on the Financial Times, I often come in here and we talk history.
Yes.
And it's very nice of you to take an interest in that, but I do know my history. There was a Chancellor called Hugh Dalton just after the war who, on his way in to deliver the budget speech, accidentally tipped off an evening newspaper reporter, the old Star newspaper, long disappeared, and tipped a reporter off a couple of the things that would be in the budget. This newspaper came out just before he spoke in the days when there were lots of editions of newspapers in London. And he resigned.
Yes.
He resigned for telling a few things. Now we have this absolute avalanche of stuff coming out, contradictory all the time. We have the Office Budget for Budget Responsibility getting involved, and apparently what they say 1 minute changes from this to that. Or started by George Osborne, Tory Chancellor.
I know, but this whole pitch rolling for 6 weeks ahead, and then let's try some ideas, and if the public doesn't like them, let's try others. Seems to me to be a bit hand to mouth.
Yeah, but look at the people who, I hate to say this, of course the electorate matter, we love you all and love you all, but the people that really matter on occasions like this are the people who lend money to this country, the bond markets, as they talk about. They take a very hard-eyed view of everything. And what are they doing? They're pushing up the interest rates on the debts this country owns. And when uncertainty comes along with a capital U, that's when the interest rates rise out of all proportion.
I mean,
that's what the government do not seem to recognise.
The Sunday Express is billing it as bloodbath of the high street. So let's wait and see what happens in, I think it's 10 days' time. And I'll be speaking to Julian Jessup, the economist, about what is planned for the budget. So stay tuned for that. Nicholas Owen, thank you very much indeed for joining me on this Sunday morning. And coming up next, we've got Mike Tapp, who is the Minister for Migration and Citizenship, to go through this immigration crackdown. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Not so much sun across parts of Europe, particularly in the west, spells of rain and some strong winds here. We're also expecting some thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans and Greece. We've still got the remnants of Storm Claudia, bringing spells of rain, strong winds to parts of Portugal, Spain and also northern Morocco. Plenty of showers across central parts of the Mediterranean. These showers turning heavy and thundery across parts of the Balkans and areas of Greece. A mix of sunshine and further showers into next week, and feeling a little bit cooler than of late as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Mike Tapp, the Minister for Migration and Citizenship, joins me now in the studio. Lovely to see you, Mr. Tapp. Thanks for coming in the flesh. So you've launched this big crackdown on asylum seekers. It's modelled on the Danish proposals that we've witnessed over the course of the last decade, although already some concerns coming in that it's a bit Danish light. It's a bit of a half-baked Danish pastry. I mean, for instance, let me point one thing out that sort of rang alarm bells with me. You're saying, for instance, that you're going to review the safety of the country that the asylum seekers come from every 30 months. That's a long period of time, isn't it, to review the status of a country? Why isn't it, for instance, every 12 months?
Well, firstly, it's really important that we get control and order to the border and the immigration system. And we are as frustrated as the public with the number of crossings. And the reason we see so many going into northern France to come over to the country is because of asylum shopping. Now, that's because for many we're seen as a soft touch, and the smuggling gangsters often package to those migrants that you're going to get better benefits here than you will in other places.
It's true, isn't it? We are a soft
Europe.
touch.
Not anymore. And of course, we've started strongly with record deportations and removals, up to 50,000 now. Our immigration enforcement rates are more than they've ever been in the history of the country.
So there is
now
some
we're
suggestions
going
that some people have
further.
left voluntarily, and you're claiming it as a deportation, and it isn't.
Well, it's deportation and removals, and we're really clear on that. And now we're going further to ensure that people aren't shopping and then choosing us as a soft touch.
Okay.
So what that means is before, it would take 5 years before you're then almost automatically settling in the country. We're reducing that to 30 months. That's 2.5 years, halving it for a review, and also extending the time to right to settlement to 20 years. That's a significant change, which means it's less attractive to come here.
But this plan isn't going to do anything about the fact that people can come here illegally by dinghy and then get room and board at a 3, 4 or 5-star hotel.
Well, look, we're obviously...
That's the draw, though.
The whole point is to take away the pull factors. And we're also saying in this package, and you'll hear more tomorrow from the Home Secretary, that if you're committing crimes or if you can work and you're not, we can take away that support and benefits, just to ensure that people aren't gaming the system and seeing us as a soft touch. So this is hard policy, which will have an impact.
Mr. Tapp, let's just square this circle, right? If we are going to give people room and board in hotels over and above the needs of British residents who complain about said hotels, for instance, in the instance in Epping, and are overruled because of planning policy reasons, right? If we're going to be saying that in this country you come here illegally by dinghy across the channel, and when you arrive, regardless of whether you've got paperwork, you haven't, you claim this, you claim that, you're going to be given room and board. That's the draw. People aren't going to be fleeing desperately or not, or be economic migrants and care much about how long it takes for indefinite leave to remain to turn into citizenship. They're coming here because they're getting hotel places.
Right. Well, firstly, they do care about the package that they receive. And I'll just get straight to your point on hotels. When we came into government, 400 were open. That's now down to 200. And we're moving them out of hotels to basic military sites. So that we're working with the MOD on that now. That's another part of this package to make it less attractive.
The other thing that you've introduced is an AI tool to root out adults posing as children. Are you seriously telling me that we need AI to establish whether a bloke arriving on a dinghy with a full beard who appears middle-aged isn't a child?
Well, you've used one example. And
I mean, there's plenty of examples like this,
I've been to the Western Jetfoil, and I've been shown pictures by the officers there where I've got to guess the age of some of these people, and it's really difficult. So bringing in extra tools to help us be more effective at that can't be a bad thing.
This isn't going to get past the left-wing backbenchers in the Labour Party, is it? I mean, we saw this with the welfare reforms that never really came off. Actually, welfare isn't going to come down very much at all over the course of the next Parliament, despite it shooting up to record levels. The winter fuel U-turn, again prompted by a threatened rebellion. We've already got your colleague, Nadia Whittome, talking about how this policy is racist. That's going to be echoed over the course of the next few days. So you're going to struggle to get this past your own MPs, aren't you?
Well, it's my responsibility, along with Alex Noyes, the other immigration minister, and of course Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary, to look at what's right for the country. And we can't continue down the route we are. We can't allow that asylum shopping to continue. So we're putting in these measures. And I've been speaking to colleagues all week about this, and it's really positive feedback that their constituents are going to receive this really well. Of course, you're occasionally going to get others that don't agree, but that's the same across all political parties. What we're going to do is drive this through to make the change to ensure that people aren't asylum shopping across Europe.
And then what happens is people lawyer up, and you find that you're going to be tied up in weeks and months of lawfare in the courts because we are still a signatory and part of the ECHR. So you can't really execute this plan without leaving the ECHR, can you? This is the other problem. This is the other fly in the ointment.
Well, I disagree with that. The way Denmark have reshaped their immigration system has been extremely effective, and they're within the ECHR. What we're saying, and you'll see more coming next week, is that we are looking at Article 8, Article 3 specifically to ensure that we use our domestic laws to make it fit for purpose, but also modern slavery. Far too many of these migrants at the last minute claim they've been subject to slavery. So, of course, we've got to protect those that are, but we're reforming that too to make sure it can't be used against us.
Actually, in Denmark, when people do claim their rights under the ECHR, they're then stuck in some kind of holding pattern where they can't be deported, and they're actually given room and board by the Danish authorities. So, again, I put it to you, the ECHR factor here is once again going to thwart these plans, as it did Rwanda, as it does any other attempt to get people out of the country because the numbers are far too high.
Well, Denmark have removed and deported 95% of failed asylum seekers. That's the route that we're going down. But we also have to remember that we are a compassionate country, and if they are genuine asylum seekers, we offer that help. It's British values. We're firm, but we're also fair.
Why don't we
when the likes of Nigel Farage and the Conservatives talk about the ECHR, have they done the maths around the collapsed trade deals, the peace talks,
I think Lord
and also the returns agreements?
An 80-page report.
There's returns agreements that are underpinned by the ECHR. Right. They would all fall down, and we wouldn't be able to remove as many people.
You're criticising the Conservatives there. You might need them to carry this legislation through Parliament. If you have a massive rebellion on the Labour benches, Kemi Badenoch has rather magnanimously decided that she will lend support. How embarrassing will it be for Starmer to need to rely on the Tories to get this legislation through?
Look, I've been having conversations with colleagues. They all 100% behind this, the ones that I've spoken to. And the reason for that is because they know we need to deliver order and control to our borders.
Are you ruling out rebellion over this? The Rachel Maskells, the Nadia Whithomes of this world are going to be supporting this plan?
Like I said before, in all political parties, you do have some voices that disagree with policy. But we're driving this through because that's what the country wants to see, and it is, of course, country first, because that's what we're in government to do. It's a real privilege to be one of the immigration ministers, and I know that the Home Secretary is a really true patriot.
Well,
she's determined to deliver
Mr.
this.
Tapp, we would have loved to have spoken to her about this, but unfortunately she didn't have time for GB News this morning, despite our audience arguably being the most concerned about immigration in the country. Why didn't you just keep Rwanda?
Well, Rwanda was a failed scheme. It was a failed scheme.
No, it hadn't even started. You could have tried it out, seen if it's been a deterrent. It cost £700 million and only 4 volunteers were deported. Look, you look at the agreement with the French, which, by the way, is only a very small part of what we're doing. What are we paying the French
That's very much a pilot scheme. We've already deported over 100 there compared to the 4 that went to Rwanda.
What do the good people of Dover think about the millions that have been spent on the French helping us to solve this problem? They've done the opposite,
What we've got to bear in mind is we have inherited open borders, and the work we're doing with the French is really important. But I accept, the Home Secretary accepts that we haven't got there yet, and that you're going to see tomorrow a package of legislation that will help take away those pull factors to stop the migrants travelling through France to come here, because France isn't a dangerous country.
We're running out of time, so let's move on to other matters and talk about the budget on November the 26th. Why do you think that Rachel Reeves is now the least popular Chancellor in history? Only 71% are dissatisfied with her. Only 29% of the population think she's doing a good job.
One of the frustrations that we all have with politics is how long it takes for changes to deliver. And we've seen some positive changes in the economy, 5 interest rate cuts. Well, 5 interest rate cuts.
Growth is just tanked to 0.1%.
We've seen 3 million, including a large number of my constituents with £1,300 extra in their pockets from the minimum wage rise. Right. So these things are positive. But by the way, I'm not...
Not if you're paying the minimum wage,
What I'm not doing is saying that it's all rosy.
How many constituents have got £1,300 extra this year?
Per year, so 3 million across the country. That's significant.
So constituents who happen to be on the minimum wage are doing well. People paying the minimum wage aren't doing well, are they? As the Sunday Express said, the budget is planning a bloodbath for shops and pubs.
It's really important that Rachel Reeves sticks to her philosophy of that fiscal rules and creating that headroom. We've already seen the highest growth in the G7, which, by the way, is minimal, but it still shows that what we're doing is heading in the right direction, and she will go further on that.
The trouble is, the Chancellor doesn't know what she's doing, does she?
I completely disagree with that.
Well, sorry, sorry, hang on a minute. We get the pitch roll of we're going to cut income tax. She says it in a speech. 2 weeks later, actually, we're not going to do that. We don't know what we're doing. We might lower tax thresholds, which is a tax rise anyway. She hasn't got a clue what she's doing. They're literally writing the budget right now, and they keep on chopping and changing it with all of this ludicrous pitch rolling that's taken place over the last 6 months.
There's often rumours about rumours in politics. That's
no,
not...
she said they were going to put up tax. She said it in a speech, Mr.
What we've
Tapp.
got to remember here is that we do have a very difficult fiscal picture that we've inherited. We're heading in the right direction. And look, if our growth in the first part of this year is higher than the Americans, then it shows that we're heading in the right direction. But there's still a hell of a lot of work to do.
I don't think it's going to be higher than the Americans, but we live in hope.
The highest in the G7 in the first part of this year.
Mr. Tapp, Mike Tapp, thank you very much indeed for joining me today.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, for his reaction to what I've just discussed with the Migration Minister. Thank you very much. This is Camilla Tominey on GB News. Do stay tuned.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feet earlier this year as part of the first group to trek the same route as Lawrence of Arabia.
A former Special Forces officer, Howard Leedham, followed in Lawrence's footsteps across Saudi Arabia and Jordan in a 25-day journey. And I'm very happy to say he joins us now. Howard, thank you very much for coming to see us.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, talk us about what you're putting on, having completed that remarkable trek.
Well, we did the trek in January and February, and I was odd enough to lead a team of Special Forces Club members to do the entire route that Lawrence did in 1917. 685 miles, 1,100 kilometres, took us 25 days. We started off with 5 riders, 4 riders made it, and the last 9 days we spent in Jordan. And one of the things that in Saudi, we would basically follow Lawrence's route from water to water and go to the same wells that he had gone, because that's what they had to do, as they worked their way around the Nefed Desert. And then, obviously, when they came in towards Aqaba, because the guns in Aqaba all faced towards the sea, yeah. so they had to cross the uncrossable desert to get into the back of Aqaba. And when you come into Jordan, what strikes you is, because of the topography and because of the way that the history is so well recorded in that area, is that you can basically follow almost the precise route that he followed, and basically sleep in the same places that he slept. So you can really feel what they were doing and how they tactically moved down in order to take the port of Aqaba.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Lots more still to come on today's show. I'm going to be speaking to Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. What's his view on what Mike Tapper's just told me about Labour's asylum crackdown? And why aren't the Conservatives cutting through on some of these issues? Was it wrong for Rishi Sunak to abandon the Rwanda plan when he called that general election? I'm also going to be speaking to Sir Anthony Selden. He's an author and historian. He's written many books about prime ministers, currently doing books on both Starmer and Sunak. What does he make of the briefing war that has taken hold of Number 10 in recent days? All that and more to come, but first, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Camilla, thank you. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Home Secretary is set to unveil sweeping measures to tackle illegal migration, vowing to restore order and end the UK's so-called golden ticket for asylum seekers. People granted asylum will only be allowed to stay in the UK temporarily before being returned to their home country when it's deemed safe. They also have to wait 20 years before they can apply to settle permanently. That's quadruple the current limit. The plans, modelled on the Danish system, will be announced in the House of Commons tomorrow. Donald Trump says he'll speak to Prime Minister Keir Starmer this weekend about his plans to sue the BBC. The broadcaster has apologised for airing an edited version of a speech he gave on the day of the Capitol Hill riot in a Panorama programme. They call it an error of judgment and refuse to pay compensation. But the US president told GB News he feels obligated to take legal action against the corporation to avoid it happening again. He's seeking up to $5 billion in damages. Angela Rayner could be laying the groundwork for a leadership challenge against Sir Keir Starmer. The Telegraph reports the former Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary has been offering cabinet roles to MPs in exchange for support. Rayner stepped down from her position in September after controversy over her tax affairs. Snow could be on the way for parts of Britain as a cold snap arrives in the wake of Storm Claudia. It comes as a major incident has been declared in South Wales due to severe and widespread flooding in Monmouth. Emergency services there have been carrying out rescues, evacuations and welfare checks. 4 severe flood warnings remain in place across Wales, and in England there are 29. A British woman has died and 28 people are injured in Portugal after the same storm brought violent weather to a tourist region in the Algarve. And in boxing, Conor Benn took revenge against Chris Eubank Jr. to end the long wait for his family to secure victory in what has been a decades-long rivalry. Benn beat Eubank Jr. by unanimous decision at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last night. Benn had lost to Eubank Jr. earlier this year, and the competition starting between their parents in the 90s when Chris Eubank Sr. beat Nigel Benn twice. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at 10 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thanks, Bethany. Welcome back. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, joins me now. Lovely to see you this morning, Mr. Philp. Now, I'm confused. You've decided that you're going to work with Labour so that they can get their Danish-style plan across the line in the House of Commons. Why, when it appears to be rather half-baked?
Good morning, Camilla. Look, if they have some ideas that might help a bit, yeah, sure, we'll support them. But my view is that their package as a whole goes nowhere near far enough. If we're going to end the immigration crisis facing Britain, we need tough, radical measures. We need to start with coming out of the ECHR, which is stopping us controlling our borders properly. And by coming out of the ECHR, we will be able to deport every illegal immigrant who arrives within a week of their feet touching the shore. And that will have a deterrent effect because illegal immigrants in northern France won't bother crossing in the first place if they know they're going to get deported really quickly. So look, sure, some of their ideas, you know, are small steps in the right direction. Some of them, by the way, are just gimmicks, like their ridiculous Smash the Gangs gimmick from a year or two ago.
Why are you supporting it then?
But some of these
Why
things
has Kemi Badenoch said? Why has
Well,
Kemi
look,
Badenoch said you'll support this if it isn't good enough?
Well, look, some of the measures, I say some are gimmicks, which won't work. Some of these are little steps in the right direction. For example, reassessing asylum claims for people who've arrived legally every few years. Fine, that's not a bad idea. We'll support that. But on its own, it's not enough. And we would go much further. We would say for illegal immigrants, they should not be able to claim asylum at all. So there won't even be any need to reassess their asylum claim. They won't be getting it in the first place.
Well, why didn't you say any of this when you were in power? Oh, my goodness me. This is what our audience finds so frustrating.
Camilla,
you're now saying, the Labour Party should do more when you didn't do enough.
Let me get a word in edgeways. So look, first of all, we're under new leadership, right? Kemi was never Prime Minister, I was never Home Secretary. That is the first point. Secondly, Kemi has acknowledged the last government made some mistakes, right? We've acknowledged that openly and honestly. Although I would say the last government did have the Rwanda plan ready to go at the time of the election. We went through a couple of legal challenges, which were, by the way, both ECHR based. We had to pass a special law. That Rwanda deterrent, where illegal immigrants crossing the channel would have got sent straight to Rwanda, that was ready to go after the election. The first plane was due to take off on July the 24th, but Keir Starmer made a catastrophic mistake by cancelling that Rwanda scheme just days before it was due to start with no replacement. And as a consequence, the numbers crossing the channel have surged. So look, anyway, we're now under new leadership. We have got a new, far more radical plan, and we are not messing around.
Hang on, if I could get a word in edgeways. I'm sorry, the reason why the Rwanda plan didn't take off...
Go on, Camilla.
Well, it is my show, is that Rishi Sunak called a general election before the flight had taken off. He did that because he'd had enough. It was all going badly for him. It was a catastrophic mistake. We arguably wouldn't have been in this mess now if the Tories had got their ideas together, had actually got a flight off the ground. Then we could have proven that it was a deterrent. Labour would have had to have kept it on, otherwise face a mutiny in their own constituencies. So the person that bungled this really was Rishi Sunak, wasn't it? Not Keir Starmer.
Well, hang on a second. I'm not sure that's completely fair. So, look, I'm not sure what Rishi's motivation was for calling that early election, but quite clearly, I do agree with what you said. It was obviously a mistake to call the election early, and I wish we'd taken the extra 6 months or so we could have had in the last Parliament. The election could have been held as late as, I think it was January 2025, about 6 months later, and clearly that would have been a lot better. He should have done that, and that would have enabled those first few flights to get off, as you say. So I'll openly acknowledge you're right on that election timing point, but it is also completely wrong of Keir Starmer to have cancelled that Rwanda deterrent just days before it was due to start, because the experience of, for example, Australia, and I spoke to Tony Abbott, the former Australian Prime Minister, just a few weeks ago, when you start removing people straight away with no messing around, pretty soon the crossing stopped. Tony Abbott told me that back in about September 2013, within just a few months of starting a similar policy, the crossings stopped entirely. And you know what? I went over to France in August, and I spoke to some of these illegal immigrants in the camps and asked them, why are you coming to the UK? And they said they know they can work illegally. And I visited a hotel in London where there's rampant illegal working by asylum seekers. They think they're going to get put up in a hotel, which they are, but critically, they think there's almost no chance they're going to get removed. And they're right, because under this Labour government, 95% of illegal immigrants get to stay, only 5% get removed. We need all of them to be removed, and then pretty soon they're going to stop attempting the crossing in the first place.
But before we move on to other matters, my central question remains. If your own borders plan, which you had Lord Wolfson to help you with because he made a cogent 80-page argument for leaving the ECHR, if you're saying that you cannot solve the asylum problem, the small boats problem, or indeed legal migration problems that this country faces without leaving the ECHR, and Labour aren't willing to do that, why on earth are you backing this plan? Because you know it's going to fail.
Look, if they take a small step in the right direction, okay, which will help a little bit, then fine. Okay, well, we're not going to oppose that. It'll help a little bit. It's better than nothing. But we're also, tell you what, Camilla, we're going to be tabling our own amendments to this bill when it goes through Parliament to come out of the ECHR to deport every single illegal immigrant within a week of arrival, etc.
Because you don't have enough MPs.
And we'll see. Well, we're going to
because you didn't crack down on immigration
and we're going to vote
time.
for them.
That's why you lost the election.
Listen, Camilla, we're under new leadership now. We've got a new leader in Kemi. I wasn't Home Secretary before. We've got a plan. It's a very radical plan. It's a very tough plan. Come out the ECHR, kick out illegal immigrants, OK, and we're going to push that in Parliament. And if we get back into office, we are going to be implementing that actively and energetically.
OK.
As you can hopefully tell from the way I'm just discussing this now.
Mr. Philp, you are nothing but energetic on a Sunday morning on my show. I'll give you that. Can we talk about somebody else who's full of beans right now, and that's Donald Trump, who is now threatening to sue the BBC for up to $5 billion. Do you support him in his quest to sue the BBC? Because you've been quite critical of the BBC in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, and I think on this issue, the BBC are totally in the wrong. The way they edited together Donald Trump's speech was to misrepresent what he said. It was absolutely outrageous, and it's not just this issue. We've seen BBC reporting of the Gaza conflict being extremely biased.
So should he
for example,
sue?
It may have even been Panorama. Let me come on to that. I think they got a child who was the son of a Hamas commander making some documentary which was ridiculous. Their coverage of the trans issue is totally one-sided. So the BBC were bang out of order on this, and they should have apologised a lot sooner. Now, in terms of suing people, Donald Trump's entitled to take whatever legal action he wants, but I don't want to see licence payers' money being sent across the Atlantic, even though the BBC were totally out of order on this.
I've seen that you've stopped talking, Chris Philp, but I can't actually hear what you are saying from your position. So I'm going to ask you one final question, and hopefully you can hear me. Oh, I can hear you again. Thank goodness for that. So are you supporting him suing? He should sue. Just yes or no?
So I was saying the BBC are totally out of order. They should have apologised sooner. If Donald Trump wants to sue, he's obviously entitled to do that. But I don't want to see British licence payers' money sent over the Atlantic.
OK. If we go into recession, should Rachel Reeves resign, Chris Philp?
I think she should resign straight away, to be honest, because she's done such a terrible job as Chancellor. She lied to the electorate. Yeah, I think she should resign today. Yeah, because she's done such a terrible job. Look, she lied to the electorate before the last election. She said there were no plans for tax rises. At the last budget, she put through the biggest set of tax rises in a generation, even though she said she wasn't going to put taxes up. As a result of that, unemployment has shot up. There are a couple of 100,000 of our fellow citizens now unemployed as a result of her decisions. Welfare spending is out of control. And what is she going to do in a couple of weeks' time? Well, we all know what she's going to do. She's going to put up taxes even further and make the problem even worse. Some of the most successful people in this country are now leaving as a result of what Rachel Reeves has done.
Do you think that the Prime Minister will still be in place this time next year?
Goodness me, well, I haven't got a crystal ball, but it's looking pretty dicey for Keir Starmer because I think his colleagues are pretty fed up with him. He's doing a terrible job. People like Angela Rayner are sniffing blood in the water, and she is obviously sharpening her knives, ready to go after him, if I'm not mixing my metaphors there. This is a failing government which is more interested in fighting each other than in fixing our country's problems. For example, fixing the borders crisis or indeed reducing welfare spending. They're busy fighting each other, aren't they?
Well, the country has grown used to that kind of politics over the course of the last 15 years, Chris Philp. Finally, Find Out Now puts the Conservatives behind. Have you? Good. Well, we look forward to you honouring your own manifesto commitments in due course. The Find Out Now polling company finds the Conservatives are now behind the Greens. Very briefly, Chris Philp. My goodness me.
Look, I mean, we suffered a bad election defeat a year and a half ago. It takes time to recover from that. But I think our party conference, which you were at, of course, we spoke there, set out a really good new policy agenda to get welfare spending down, abolish stamp duty on primary residential houses to help first-time buyers and upsizers and downsizers, come out of the ECHR, ditch the Climate Change Act, loads of policies I think sensible British citizens can get behind. So although, I'd rather we were doing better in the polls, I am relatively optimistic about what the future holds. But Camilla, it does take time.
All right, Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning. Thank you. Sound like the kind of policies that Britons have been crying out for, the last 15 years. It's so great, isn't it, to see Labour and the Conservatives now aligned on immigration in some form. I mean, we could have told them this literally 2 to 3 decades ago, but there you have it. Coming up next, let's dive back into the Donald Trump interview that Bev Turner has done with GB News and discuss that threat against the BBC. We're going to be speaking to Justin Young, who is a podcaster, and we're going to be hearing from Ben in Washington, DC. Do stay tuned, don't go anywhere. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, as you know, you can't have missed it. GB News' Bev Turner sat down with US President Donald Trump in a world-exclusive interview on Friday. Presenter of The Late Show Live, Ben Leo, has sent us this special message from Washington, D.C. with the inside scoop.
Morning to you, Camilla, viewers and listeners. Ben Leo from The Late Show Live here in Washington, D.C. Just with a little update, some colour for you on The Late Show Live's venture into the White House and Bev Turner's great interview with President Trump. So, of course, Bev sat down with the President in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. I was just behind Bev as the interview took place. I was standing next to President Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung, which was a pretty entertaining 45 minutes. The more interesting part for me, though, just to kind of enlighten viewers and listeners about the whole experience, is when the interview finally came to an end. President Trump got up, he came and said hello to me, he said hello to the crew, the camera operator, our producer here as well. And he was so excited to invite us into his office, into the Oval Office, which in itself was a magical experience, extraordinary. We've heard, of course, criticism over the recent months about how President Trump has tried to tart up the White House with sort of gold decorations and installations. And walking into that Oval Office was incredible. The history in there, the soul of the place, you could really feel the the magnitude of what that office has represented over the years to the United States. President Trump beckoning us over to his desk to see his phones and so on and show us around. Then it took another step. He invited us out onto the Rose Garden patio. There was some really sort of patriotic American music playing for some reason, quite loud, which made me giggle. And yeah, we had a nice chat with President Trump. And I just get the feeling, whether you like him or not politically, I think as a person, at least you know what he's about. He seems quite genuine. When I was speaking to him, he looks you in the eye. He seems genuinely interested to speak with you. He was asking about the UK, when the next election is, how Nigel Farage is getting on, how they are doing in the polls, Reform UK. And also he was quite interested in what the big political issues were of the day, what he thinks, or what we think here in the UK, will be really affecting the election. Is it energy prices? Is it cost of living? Is it migration? For now, Ben Leo on The Late Show Live. I'll see you tonight at midnight.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Ben. Well, let's get the US view on what's been going on with Trump and the BBC and everything else in between. Host of Politics, a podcast in America, is Justin Young, who joins me now. Justin, lovely to see you.
It is amazing to be here.
Well, so we've a big scoop for GB News with this interview with the president. What did you make of it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is obviously this BBC issue and the confirmation that I guess the price went up from $1 billion to $5 billion.
I know, that's quite the jump, isn't it?
I mean, inflation is real here in America, so
didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah, no, that was certainly a big moment. I don't really know what to make of the seriousness of it. There has been a history in America, specifically settlements of $13 and $15 million, respectively, with ABC and CBS. The ABC claim was had a little bit more heft to it.
Yes.
The CBS claim was another editing question of a promo that was run for a Kamala Harris interview during the election.
That's right.
On Face the Nation. That I think had probably more to do with the fact that CBS was in a merger and wanted to get a lot of things that were
I remember they kind of
off the
settled
books.
because they felt they had to and they needed to maintain a relationship with the White House at the time. Look, I mean, you're talking about millions. The point is sometimes his bark is bigger than its bite.
Yeah.
And he does like to consult lawyers. I think we worked out last week that he had launched 4,000 legal claims against someone or other over the course of his career, right?
Yes.
So he is litigious, we know this. I think $5 billion seems to me to be a stretch. But there is a perfectly sort of cogent argument for him taking this as far as he can take it. Like it's not all bluster and threat. I think he's seriously consulting lawyers and they're seriously reacting to what we've discovered at the Telegraph.
Yeah, I think obviously there is an issue here because there were firings at the BBC for an organization that has survived many, many different scandals that have not had that level of consequence to it. I don't know exactly where the mechanisms are that he would sue for $5 billion, whether or not it is in America, it's in the UK. Obviously, press protections and laws are different. But the one thing that is very, very unique about this scenario is that obviously the BBC is government funded. And so if you look at this from the Trump perspective of international trade deals or leverage, even between close allies and friends like the United States and the UK are, then a $5 billion lawsuit is something.
Yes. But what do we make of Trump saying to reporters, look, this is now for Keir Starmer to sort of get in between of? He wants to speak to the UK Prime Minister to try and work this out. What's he expecting from Starmer?
I don't know. And I don't think anybody really knows. Because also, and this is something that I don't know how much people in America really understand, but Keir Starmer's got his own problems.
Yes.
He's got a lot on his plate right now.
Yes.
And I don't think that there's anything that he can say other than we're really, 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 really sorry that will have any bearing on Donald Trump's anger over this, especially because Trump's a leverage guy. He understands that right now, Keir's not in a tremendously great position. So if there's any ask that Donald Trump has of the prime minister, this week would probably be the time to make it.
Yes, indeed. Moving on slightly, do we think that this is going to in any way damage the special relationship? I mean, on one hand, you could say it's sort of inside a media bubble. There's a degree of navel-gazing perhaps going on with the media's coverage of another part of the media making mistakes. on a wider front. Clearly, and Rob Crilly, the Telegraph's foreign editor, sort of made this point, that he is very hurt and upset about this because he is an Anglophile.
He does, yeah.
And so one wonders whether it does actually upset international relations, or maybe it doesn't meet the bar because it's not about policy.
It doesn't.
No.
I think that this is, it's a great media story. It is certainly, I think, probably more reflective of like where the BBC is, not only here in the UK, but also internationally. But I don't believe that it really affects Donald Trump's position or anybody outside of it, because Donald Trump does love, he loves the pomp and circumstance of the United Kingdom, and I don't think that's going to change.
OK, let's move on to something else, because some have suggested, particularly those who are critical of Trump, that this whole BBC farrago has been a dead cat strategy to deflect attention, to divert from the Epstein files. Now, no, but it's interesting. Why are you laughing, Justin? Do you think that's nonsense?
No, it's if you followed the Epstein story from the American perspective, it has just been on quite a quixotic path, where it was an obsession on the right for a very long time, dismissed summarily by the left, and then Donald Trump makes the very odd decision to not follow through with disclosures of various things.
I mean, that does appear a bit shifty, right?
It's odd.
He wanted to disclose the Epstein files, I think, because he wanted it to expose the links between Epstein and Democrats, including Bill and Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's a story in the Mail on Sunday today saying that he is going after the Clintons now. He wants to bring them down. This was a briefing from the White House to that UK newspaper. He wants an investigation into prominent Democrats. The trouble with that is that will further delay the publishing of these files. Pam Bondi has said that they're not going to be published, even though it was promised that they would be. I suppose the general public is left thinking, well, what have you got to hide?
I would say that Trump has never specifically been a big Epstein files disclosure guy. His movement very much has. And that's where the disconnect has come in. Even when he was asked during the 2024 campaign, he has made mention that, well, you don't really know what's in there, and there could be a lot of phony stuff in there, blah, blah, blah. His base desperately wants everything out there. The big question I think everybody really has to reconcile now that we're in a rubber meets the road phase is, what exactly do we mean when we say the Epstein files?
Yes.
Like we had a bunch of these emails come out by way of the House Oversight Committee, and they're illuminating. They certainly show that Jeffrey Epstein was connected to a lot of people throughout government and media on both sides of the aisle. And there's some very colorful things that have made the internet titter over the last 48 hours. But what are we looking for?
Well, I think we're looking for, did they break up their relationship in 2008, as Donald Trump has said, and he didn't know anything about the girls? Or should we believe the Epstein email that has emerged this week saying, of course, Trump knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine Maxwell, to stop? Just briefly, Justin, that's what people want to know. How much did Trump know about what Epstein was doing? Indeed, how much did the Clintons know? How much did anyone know who flew on the Lolita Express?
That is certainly a very, very good question. And I do think that is consistent with at least what we've heard from other people that are at Mar-a-Lago, that Donald Trump was told by another member that Ghislaine and Jeffrey were recruiting.
Yes, from Mar-a-Lago.
From
so
Mar-a-Lago.
That's what he told them to stop.
Yes.
But then if they're recruiting, he kind of must have an inkling as to what they're recruiting for, right? But who knows?
Who knows?
Justin Young, thank you very, very much indeed for joining me this morning. Thank you very much. Well, coming up next, we're going to be discussing all things economical with Julian Jessup, and I'm going to be speaking to Sir Anthony Selden, who is a leading political biographer, not just about his new book, The Path to Auschwitz, but also about all of this number 10 shenanigans. Will Keir Starmer stay or go? Will Angela Rayner take over? And what about Wes Streeting? All that's still to come. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a chilly start this morning with some frost in places. Otherwise, there will be lots of sunshine, feeling a lot colder than of late, though. Now, there could be some quite murky conditions across the south to start, some drizzle and possible fog, but this should eventually clear through the course of the morning, and actually there'll be lots of sunshine across the country. We can't rule out some showers across the far north of Scotland, also any exposed North Sea coast, but for most, dry, plenty of sunshine, though feeling cold. Highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, but feeling much colder in exposed spots where you really catch that brisk northerly wind. Now, any lingering cloud across the south soon clearing away, leaving plenty of clear skies. So it is going to be turning much chillier, and that's fairly similar across Wales, northern parts of England and also Northern Ireland. But still can't rule out some showers just starting to scoot through into exposed coasts. And similar conditions across Scotland too. Still some showers possible around coastal areas, but remaining mostly dry in inland areas. And through the course of the night, those clear skies will stick around. So it is going to be turning very cold, and we are expecting quite a frosty night, particularly across Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Some patchy frost across Wales, central and southern England, though perhaps less so across the far southeast. So still some quite blustery winds around North Sea coasts, but for all it is going to be a much chillier start to the new working week. Now, the good news is, although still quite cold, there is going to be lots of dry weather and even lots of sunshine. Though once again, we can't rule out some blustery showers just moving into North Sea coast. Some of these could bring a little bit of sprinkling of snow across any high ground, but otherwise dry with some sunshine and temperatures returning to average for this time in November, feeling much colder with highs reaching between 8 to 9 degrees Celsius.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Right, let's talk about economic matters with the budget fast approaching. It's coming in 10 days' time on November the 26th. To do that, I'm joined by economist and IEA fellow Julian Jessup. Lovely to see you this morning, Mr Jessup.
Good morning.
I'm thinking that the budget has already become an omni-shambles before it's begun. What do you make of this reverse ferreting that has occurred? We heard from the Chancellor in a speech several weeks ago, pitch rolling, it's the new phrase, isn't it, for Westminster, pitch rolling the idea of income tax going up, which would have put a coach and horses through the Labour manifesto. Now, apparently this week, no, she's not going to do that. She might change thresholds or introduce a mansion tax. Have you ever known anything as shambolic as the prep for this?
Well, frankly, no. I think also, of course, the markets have spoken. On Friday, there was quite a big jump in the cost of government borrowing in the bond markets as a result of all this chaos. And I think basically the markets are rattled by 3 things. One is that the U-turn on income tax clearly demonstrates the government is not willing to make tough decisions on tax. We already knew that about spending, but now we know it about tax as well. The second problem is that the alternatives to raising income tax are much less certain in terms of the amount of money they might raise. So instead of doing a sort of fairly clean increase in income tax, she's going to raise money in all sorts of other ways. It's been described as a smorgasbord, but I think I'd call it a dog's breakfast. So lots of individual tax changes that could be very damaging. And finally, if this was done for political reasons, it's backfired. I mean, Starmer and Reeves, their positions seem even less secure than they were. And the markets fear that the alternative to either of those people will be even worse than the current lot.
Yes, well, we've got Angela Rayner on manoeuvres, Wes Streeting on manoeuvres. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said to me that Rachel Reeves should just resign tomorrow. And, of course, we've got the Prime Minister's future in doubt because of all these briefings. What's your feeling now? I know it's hard to tell because we've had claim and counterclaim. What's your instinct on what she might do about tax? Because we're now having the idea floated that she is going to lower the tax thresholds, which will make that problem of fiscal drag even worse.
Well, this is really just guesswork, and it's frustrating that we haven't actually heard anything from the Office for Budget Responsibility itself.
Yes.
They've been respecting what used to be called budget purdah and keeping quiet. So all we're getting is leaks and rumours and speculation from Number 10 in the Treasury, who can't really be trusted. But my own best guess is that she'll raise taxes by about 30 billion later this month. And about a third of that will come from increases in income tax. I think it's more likely to be by extending the current freeze beyond 2028 rather than actually lowering the thresholds, but that is a possibility too. So that leaves about 20 billion that I think she'll find from this sort of dog's breakfast of other measures. There might be a billion here, a billion there. A lot of that, I suspect, will actually unravel in the days after the budget, as it usually happens. People will go through the detail and conclude that it doesn't actually add up. But I think she'll definitely break the manifesto commitment on income tax, at least in spirit, if not the letter of the commitments, by extending that freeze on income tax thresholds, which even she has acknowledged is a tax on working people.
Yeah, the only other thing that seems almost certain is the idea of what is being called a mansion tax. I mean, we have in the past heard about her flirting with the idea of taxing property. They say it'll only affect the wealthiest. Actually, the newspapers are reporting today, Mr. Jessup, that it's going to affect 1 in 10 families. Strikes me that that's basically a tax on the southeast, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I think the most likely the way that they will do it is not a new mansion tax, which would complicate the system further. I think they're more likely to do it through raising council tax for higher value properties. And there is a reasonable case for doing that. Obviously, property values have risen enormously since the system was first introduced, but it creates all sorts of problems, in particular for households that might be asset rich in the sense they're living in a house that's quite valuable, but they're still income poor. So they can't necessarily pay that additional charge. So it begs the question, what is going to happen then? It might be that the government says we don't need to pay it straight away, you only need to pay it when you move or when you die. But that all creates all sorts of other issues, including a big disincentive to move. So somebody in a larger property who might want to downsize and free that property up for people who might need it more is going to be less willing to do so because they're going to be hit with a hefty tax charge. So it's another example of how these small individual measures have all sorts of unintended consequences, whereas simply doing something big and bold on income tax might actually have been better. Of course, just to mitigate, I don't think she should be doing on tax at all. I think she should be cutting spending, but that's for the birds for now.
Well, I'm sure lots of people listening and watching this programme will agree with you. Whatever happens, it seems as inevitable as night following day that we will be taxed more after November the 26th. Just to mitigate against any problems with gumming up the system when it comes to perhaps slapping a higher tax on those mansions, I couldn't believe, we reported it at the Telegraph, this idea that she might steal Kemi Badenoch's idea and scrap or reduce stamp duty. How likely do you think that is? Because that seems to me to be rather anti-Treasury orthodoxy.
Well, I'm not sure it's anti-Treasury orthodoxy. I think it's probably a tax that Treasury would like to get rid of a long time ago. I think, any economist that you get on this programme would agree that stamp duty is one of our worst taxes. The question is, if she does lower stamp duty, will she try and offset that in other ways? So it may not be a net reduction in the overall amount of tax that people are paying. And my concern is that, unlike the Conservatives, who seem to have a plan of scrapping it full stop and funding that through savings on spending, if the Labour government does that, it's likely to increase its taxes elsewhere to offset that. And I don't necessarily think the net result of that will be positive.
OK. What are we to make of growth falling to 0.1% in Q3? Obviously, that was well under projections. I appreciate the projections aren't very generous anyway. Is there a prospect of a recession?
Well, I mean, first of all, on those GDP numbers, I think actually they're actually even worse than they look, because if you look at the monthly profile over the quarter, the economy actually contracted in every single month between July and September. It's only a little bit of favourable rounding that made one of those numbers zero. So the economy is undoubtedly stalled, and I think a lot of that is about pre-budget uncertainty. Now, it's possible that the budget is not as bad as people fear. Or at least we know what we have to deal with, and so it's possible that spending will rebound. But I really wouldn't bank on that, particularly if she goes down this route of loads of individual tax increases that actually complicate the tax system, maybe increase uncertainty further. So it's possible that this is the dark before the dawn, and once the budget's out of the way, spending, hiring, and investment resumes. But I certainly wouldn't guarantee that.
Also, if spending doesn't come down, Mr. Jessup, as you say, then again we're going to be having issues with borrowing. I mean, there's this contradiction at the heart of her self-imposed fiscal discipline when the government continues to spend more. Finally, and it's a complicated thing, so let's simplify it, the gilt yields. Tell us what's going on with these gilt yields and what it actually means for the public.
Yeah, well, the reason it's important is that the yields on gilts or government bonds are a key element in deciding how much the government has to pay in debt interest every single year. So if that interest rate goes up, then the government is having to spend more on debt interest. So that's less money it's got to spend on day-to-day spending on schools and hospitals or for investment. So it has to raise that money from somewhere. And the most likely place is higher taxes. So the bond market is by far the most important financial market to follow at the moment. And it's giving a firm thumbs down to the budget even before it's been delivered.
Is it giving as big a thumbs down to Rachel Reeves as it did Liz Truss?
Well, not yet. I mean, there are some important differences. So, for example, the currency market's relatively stable now, and the rise in government bond yields after the Liz Truss mini budget was much, much bigger. But a lot of what happened after Liz Truss's mini budget was nothing to do with the budget itself. There was a ticking time bomb in the pensions market. The Bank of England at the time had just started a policy of selling government bonds back onto the market. So clearly the mini budget made lots of mistakes, but that was compounded by factors beyond the government's control. Whereas this time, I think the mess is pretty much entirely of the government's making, and in particular, the failure to control government spending.
Julian Jessup, thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.
Obviously, we will be covering the budget. Every little stealth tax and manoeuvre that we can observe, we will be covering with you on GB News. So please do stay tuned for all of the coverage leading up to November the 26th. If you can bear it, maybe hide some money under the sofa, just in case. Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to Sir Anthony Selden, who is the historian and author who has chronicled the lives of recent prime ministers. Let's be honest, he's been quite busy. He's got a new book out about Auschwitz. I'm going to be asking him about that, but also crucially asking him about whether Keir Starmer will be still Prime Minister this time next year. Do stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Not so much sun across parts of Europe, particularly in the west, spells of rain and some strong winds here. We're also expecting some thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans and Greece. We've still got the remnants of Storm Claudia, bringing spells of rain, strong winds to parts of Portugal, Spain and also northern Morocco. Plenty of showers across central parts of the Mediterranean. These showers turning heavy and thundery across parts of the Balkans and areas of Greece. A mix of sunshine and further showers into next week, and feeling a little bit cooler than of late as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer in the UK, and over a lifetime, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer. It's mostly affecting women over 50. As you mentioned before, it does affect a small proportion of men, less than 1%, but still there is a potential risk. The good news is, if caught early, survival is excellent due to improved treatments and new drugs. So 99% of women and men survive for more than 5 years if caught early. And overall, the breast cancer survival rate is about 85%, which is fantastic. It's important to know that you have to check. Women have to learn to check their breasts. So if you notice anything different, dimpling, change in shape, a lump, go and get it checked out. Even though survival rates are much improved, we do have less survival here compared to other countries. So, for example, in America, 90% of women will survive over 10 years if they're with breast cancer. So it is important to get checked out just as soon as you notice any changes whatsoever.
Why is there that difference, Lucy, between, say, us and America, for example?
Well, the UK lags behind generally in cancer survival, 10 to 25 years, they estimate, over a range of cancers. That includes prostate, ovarian, lung, breast, and bowel cancer. And there could be a number of reasons, but I think part of the problem, the NHS is great when you get to the front of the queue, isn't it? But it's actually getting there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Joining me now is the historian and author Sir Anthony Selden, who's got a new book out called The Path of Light, Walking to Auschwitz, also a political biographer. So we're going to talk about the book, but we're also going to be talking about Keir Starmer's leadership. Sir Anthony, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in. Tell us what this book is about.
So it's an optimistic book that's come out on the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. And I'm walking to Auschwitz all the way from the North Sea, English Channel. And
how many miles is that?
Well, how many miles? It's about 1,500 miles.
Goodness me.
And so I did the first walk in the first book a couple of years ago. And now this is the second book, walking from Switzerland to Auschwitz. And what I'm doing, Camilla, is I think we've heard enough, more than enough, of all the terrible, grim people from the Second World War. I mean, of course, we need to be reminded.
Yes, the horrors of the Holocaust.
The horrors of the Holocaust, but the horrors of Nazi brutality.
Yes.
Of course, we need never to forget those terrible people. But there were also remarkable women and remarkable men. And on my way, as I walk along the Rhine and the Danube and all the rivers flowing through Germany and Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic into Poland and through Poland to the Ukraine front line, to the Ukraine border, which is where I finish, I'm looking for amazing women, amazing men who protected the vulnerable, did extraordinary things, often at the cost of their own life.
And overlooked because they didn't want to come forward and tell their story for fear of reprisals, right? So
they were petrified of the utter appalling brutality. And, you know, when I'm walking, Camilla, all the time, I can almost hear the rumble from the Ukraine front line, from the Russian forces. And I talk to people throughout the book, in the Czech Republic, in Poland, who are terrified about what will happen if Europe doesn't fight and stop, because they see Putin as every bit as appalling as the dictators of the Second World War, and their lives will be made utterly miserable. So many children have already disappeared into Russia. Who knows? And they are frightened. So I'm picking up their stories. It feels not unlike somebody walking through Europe in the 1930s with the drums of Mussolini and Hitler and Stalin. there. But it is amazing, the people I found. Some are well known, like Oscar Schindler,
yes,
famous film and book about him, but most of them are unknown, partly because they were terrified of their stories being known, partly because they went up in the flames.
Yes, well, the story, often when I'm on Instagram Reels, not that I'm on it much, Sir Anthony, and I know you might have your head teacher hat on here.
Yeah, no, I'm always on the lookout.
I like to see the moment that Sir Nicholas Winterton is surrounded by all of the children, the Jewish children he saved, and he's surprised in a studio. And why I reference it being on social media so much is, of course, that's bringing that story to a new audience of younger people that don't understand the sacrifices that were bravely made by these figures.
And just a word about Winton, which is a contrast with today's leaders. He was incredibly brave, incredibly competent, and incredibly modest.
Yes.
And he didn't want his story to be known. He saved the lives of so many Jewish children who would have gone off to the camps and died. We heard no more about them. So I talk about him there. I saw where he was operating on Prague station, where the last train tragically didn't leave after the Germans arrived, but lots of trains did leave, and people are alive now, thousands of people, because of the work of one good man. And there are many Nicholas Wintons in that story.
In this. So the path of light, walking to Auschwitz. Thank you for talking about that. You mentioned good leadership there. Can we talk about bad leadership? Because you've just finished your book on Rishi Sunak. What you do is you write a biography of the Prime Minister once they've left office.
Yeah.
You're poised, presumably, to start writing about Keir Starmer. When do you think he will leave office, Anthony Selden?
So I don't think anybody knows, but Camilla, and the Rishi book is out next year. I don't think anybody knows. What is very surprising is how quickly it's gone wrong.
Yes.
And he's made fundamental mistakes. So we talked about the Liz Truss book before, which I wrote, which is subtitled How Not to be Prime Minister. And there are 10 rules of premiership to be a good Prime Minister. And he has broken many of those. He hasn't told a convincing story. The Prime Minister, as we were hearing there from Julian Jessup on the economy, it's not the Chancellor, it's the Prime Minister who is first Lord of the Treasury. The Prime Minister's most important job, in addition to keeping the country secure externally and internally, is to make certain that we don't go bust, as Churchill said. He hasn't done that. I mean, he has not given confidence to business people. So many of our finest entrepreneurial minds have fled these shores. So many people are not coming because they don't see that it's an attractive enough market. And if we lose our entrepreneurs, if we make it too hard for companies to take on people, I was interviewing Emma Bridgewater.
Oh, yes. Mugs and coffee, same.
Extraordinary. And asking her, and my students at Wellington were asking her about the impact of the new laws and national insurance on employment.
The Employment's Right Bill coming down the line.
The first job of a Labour government is to make certain, any Prime Minister, make certain the economy works, and then there will be the money, and particularly at the moment, given the parlous state. So, and he hasn't appointed the right people.
Well,
Well,
I was going to say, you say that. What did you make of last week's weirdness around the briefing about him facing a leadership challenge before he'd even faced one? Number 10 then saying, no, we didn't brief against Wes Streeting. A story in the Sunday Times this morning say that they had a shouting match, according to Gabriel Pogrund in that paper. I mean, it looks so amateur.
It is. It looks amateur because it is amateur.
Right.
And it's amateur because he doesn't know how to do the job and he doesn't instill confidence. He hasn't brought alongside him capable men and capable women who can explain to him how to do the job. Nobody comes in, Camilla, into Downing Street, as you know, knowing how to do the job. They have to learn.
Yes.
One of the key characteristics of the good Prime Ministers is, are they willing to learn on the job? And so far, he hasn't. So we're in this really difficult position. We are facing a possible economic financial crisis, a political crisis coming together at worst. We're not there yet. And where's the alternative? You might want to ask me about that.
Well, do you think the alternative is Wes Streeting or somebody else on manoeuvres, Angela Rayner?
So, well, nobody knows. And, yeah, it could be Wes Streeting. I think the question about Wes Streeting is it too young for him? What has he actually run? I mean,
Yes, the NHS, he might say.
Yeah, but
it's not really
for 15 months.
Yes.
And he's extraordinarily capable. There have been quite a few prime ministers who have been too young of late doing the job. Angela Rayner, capable, good communicator. But what would happen with a left-wing leader? What would happen to the entrepreneurs in this country? What would the bond markets do? And would that precipitate? Could she gain the confidence? First rule of the Treasury, first job of the Prime Minister is to have the confidence of the wealth creators, confidence of the economy, confidence of the markets. Yes. Would she do it?
Would she
Open
do
question.
It? Anthony Seldon, we look forward to both of your books, both on Sunak and in Starmer in due course. But who knows when. Michael Portillo's coming up at 11 as ever, my Remembrance Sunday presenting partner. Michael, what have you got coming up?
Good morning, Camilla. Do we need a licence fee? Should we be prosecuting soldiers? We're going to be talking about an opera which is about a love affair between a suicide bomber and a Jewish composer, and I will be raising a flute of festive fizz.
Sounds very, very exciting. Thank you very, very much indeed, Michael Portillo. Well, thank you to all of my guests today. I'm going to be back next week, as usual, at 9:30. Don't forget to stay tuned for Portillo at 11. Don't forget you can re-watch Bev Turner's interview with Donald Trump on the GB News website. There's a little bit of weather next, and I'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Cloudy skies will clear to sunshine through the course of this morning, but it is going to be feeling much colder, with a chance we could also see some wintry showers. The bulk of these showers will be across Scotland, where we do have this cold front skirting its way southwards, and where we'll see the majority of the cloud will be across southern counties, where it could still produce some light outbreaks of drizzle across any hills, but for most, cloud clearing away to leave plenty of sunny spells. Mostly dry, though we can't rule out some showers, mainly around coasts of Scotland, any North Sea eastern coasts too, where they could be a little bit wintry, mainly across hills, and most of the wintry showers will be across Scotland. Nevertheless, though, it is going to be feeling chilly, highs only reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius in parts of the south. Through into this evening, plenty of clear skies, so once again turning very cold across Scotland overnight. We actually got to -7 degrees Celsius last night, so seeing similar temperatures through the course of this evening. Northern Ireland, northwest England too, it will be quite a chilly night with some frost in places, perhaps a bit more cloud around eastern areas, so not turning quite as chilly here. Otherwise, for the bulk of England and Wales, clear skies leading to some very cold conditions, so likely quite a widespread frost across the country and possibly even some icy stretches. Mostly dry, though we still do have these blustery showers skirting any eastern coasts, and they could still be a little bit wintry across hilly ground. But for all, it is going to be a cold start to Monday. Temperatures widely dropping below freezing, many towns and cities across England and Wales in the mid-single figures. So a cold start, yes, but once again on Monday it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies once again, so lots of sunshine around. Still mostly dry, though once again those wintry showers continuing around any eastern coasts, and it is going to be feeling cold, particularly in the brisk northerly winds, highs reaching around 9 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even a tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.